Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. And a couple of weeks ago we looked at a low-cost tablet from Walmart that I liked quite a bit. And a bunch of you said you should check out their top-of-the-line tablet, the On 11 Tablet Pro. So I got it, and that's what we're going to look at today. And this one's a little nicer than the one we looked at last week. It's only $130, so you get a lot of value packed in here for the price point. But it's not as powerful as the On Pro they released just last year. And we're going to dive into this tablet and see what it's all about in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. This is not a sponsored review, nor is anyone reviewing or approving what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this new tablet is all about. Now this one has a nicer display than the one we looked at 2 weeks ago. It's got an 11-inch 1840 by 1280 display, so it's pretty much a 1080p display. It looks a lot sharper. I also found that the Widevine level for DRM supports 1080p playback in apps like Netflix here. So on the other tablet we looked at that costs about $30 less, it would do only 480p video on Netflix and other services. This one will do a full 1080p, so you do get much nicer looking video playback from streaming services. Now the build quality on this feels pretty good for its price point. You've got a nice rigid metal back on here that's available in a few different colors, along with a nice thick layer of glass on the display. It doesn't have one of those fancy coatings that keeps the fingerprints at bay here, but it does look nicer than the lower cost model does. Now, it weighs about a pound, 1.09 pounds to be exact, or 494 grams, so relatively lightweight here and very comfortable to carry. It does, though, lack some of the intelligence that you might find on more expensive tablets, so it sometimes gets confused if your fingers are resting on the touch surface. So you'll need to keep your fingers on the bezel here in order to get the display to scroll sometimes. So a little bit of compromises here or there that you'll find with this lower cost tablet, even though it looks and feels quite nice. It's got 4 speakers on it that support DTS:X audio. Not the best range of sound, but better than the other model and better than I expected for its price point when you're listening to music or watching streaming shows. There is no headphone jack on this though, so you'll need to attach headphones either through the USB-C port here on the side or by using Bluetooth. There is an expandable storage option here. You can put an SD card in over here, and they have 64 gigabytes of onboard storage along with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So I found some games, as you'll see in a minute, do run a little better on this tablet than they do on the lower cost option that has less memory. For a processor, this has a Qualcomm 685 on board. And as you'll see in a few minutes, this does not perform as well as last year's Pro model. In fact, on benchmarks, this tablet performs pretty much the same as the lower cost 10.1-inch tablet does. So there is a bit of a compromise here versus what we saw out of their Pro edition last year for the same price. Surprisingly, this tablet does not have Wi-Fi 6 on board, even though it's the Pro model. So it is running with a single-channel AC Wi-Fi radio that'll max out at around 250 megabits per second of transfer rate. Not a big deal if you're just using this for media consumption. That's more than adequate for watching TV shows or doing some web browsing. But for those who want the most throughput, this one will not deliver. Now, unfortunately, this tablet does not have a GPS radio built in. The 10.1-inch version does, so you can use that one offline for GPS, but not with this version. It does have 2 cameras on board, 5 megapixels each, one on the back here, and you've got one on the front in a landscape orientation. And I found the video quality out of the cameras to actually be pretty good. The stabilizer, even when enabled, isn't very good though, as you can see here, but the quality of the video, I thought, was not bad for the price point. It does 1080p at 30 frames per second. Here's a shot of my dog that I took as a still image. Also not bad. Certainly there are better looking cameras out there, but it was better than I expected. So good detail out of the rear camera here. No complaints there. Here is the front-facing camera. It shoots 1080p video at 30 frames per second. So decent for selfie videos, also very good, of course, for video conferencing and other uses that you might have for that front camera. So all in, the camera system, while not spectacular, is better than the lower cost version and a little better than I expected. So why don't we take a look now and see how this performs. We'll start off with some web browsing and work our way up from there. This is running Android 14. And as you can see here, the performance is more than adequate for doing basic web browsing. I didn't find any real performance issues with it. It seems like if you are looking for something to do email and you're browsing with, this is going to be more than fine. The display looks really nice. You've got decent pixel density for the size, so text is very easy to read. And as you can see, the touch display is quite responsive. You can also do things like picture-in-picture here, so I can grab my YouTube here and run split screen while we browse the web perhaps, so you do have the option to do some of those things. As you can see, it's not bad from a performance standpoint insofar as its responsiveness, but it could be a little quicker, and you'll certainly find better performance on tablets that might cost a little bit more. You will also find this type of thing to be snappier on the prior edition of this tablet because it did have a more powerful processor. But again, there's really nothing to complain about here given the price point. And if you are looking for something that won't break the bank but do this sort of thing like web browsing and media consumption, this will be more than adequate. Why don't we take a look now at some games? So here is the Android version of Minecraft running on the tablet, and I've got my controller here connected up over Bluetooth. The frame rate is adequate. It does not have that far of a view distance here, as you can see, but it is playable, and this is kind of indicative of a lot of the casual Android games that you'll run on this device. Most of those games will run just fine. Some of the more demanding games will probably run at lower settings, but overall you should not have a problem finding some casual games to play on this tablet. Why don't we take a look at Roblox though, because I do hear from a number of fellow parents looking for a cheap Roblox solution. Let's have a look. Now Roblox here seems to run much better on the Pro tablet than it does on the lower cost version. On the lower end one, I was getting a lot of frame drops and lag. Here, I'm not getting as much. It does stutter a little bit when I'm scrolling here, but by and large, this is a much, much more playable experience. Probably not as good as what you would get on the low-end iPad, but playable. So if you were looking for something really inexpensive for Roblox, this one at $130 will be a little better than the 10.1-inch tablet at $99. Now, game streaming on the tablet is not bad, even though it doesn't have the best Wi-Fi radio available. So right now we're playing Starfield via the Xbox Cloud Gaming service here, and as you can see, everything seems to be pretty responsive here, and I'm not getting any frame drops. So not bad here on the game streaming. If you're streaming from a service or just streaming from other parts of your house, I think you will have good performance here, provided you've got a good connection to your Wi-Fi access point. Now on the 3D Mark Wildlife benchmark test, we got a score of 662, and the performance here is pretty much within the margin of error of the lower end tablet we looked at a couple of weeks ago. So there's really no performance advantage here beyond the fact that this has an extra gigabyte of RAM, which does help on games like Roblox, as you saw. And also take a look at last year's tablet, the On 11 Pro from 2023. That one had basically double the performance on that benchmark test. So I think what happened here is Walmart probably looked at their customer base and what they were using the Pro tablet for and determined that this Qualcomm processor was probably going to be just fine. And maybe there's some battery advantages and some other things that customers might appreciate more than gaming performance. And speaking of battery life, Walmart says you'll get about 16 hours of battery life out of this device. I would agree with that assessment when you're sticking to basic tasks like web browsing and emails and those sorts of things. If you're playing games, you will see lower battery life, maybe in the 5 to 8 hour territory, depending on the game and how hard it's working the processor. But either way, you should expect all-day battery life out of this, certainly enough battery life to get you through a plane ride, watching movies and whatever. So all in, I think a good choice here perhaps if they made the decision to go with better battery life over performance, especially given that most people are not driving these tablets to the max. So altogether, I think this tablet is the one that I would recommend if you are out shopping for one of these things. What I like what Walmart is doing here is that they give you a very pure Android experience. There's no bloatware on it other than the Walmart app being installed when you take it out of the box. But beyond that, there's nothing else here that they've added to the experience. And what's nice is that you get a lot of value here for the money. And I think this one offers the most value just because the display is a lot nicer than it is on the 10.1-inch version. And it also supports higher resolution video from Netflix and Disney Plus and others. So you will get a true 1080p on here versus only DVD quality 480p on the lower cost tablet. And I did find that the added RAM here does help for games, just barely, but it does make a difference here. So this one is, I think, the one to take a look at if you've got less than $150 to spend on a tablet. It's pretty amazing too when you think about it. This is a full-fledged computer for that price. I paid about $1,500, at least my parents did, as a kid in 1985 to get my Apple IIc with the same size screen here that was monochrome. So you can really appreciate just how far technology has come here. And if you are looking for a low-cost tablet, go with the Walmart ones. They are a brand that you could give some trust to, and I think you'll have a good experience and a 1-year warranty as well. That'll do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.